Hey Kings, let's do this. Welcome to the Augustus Maximus channel, also known as the peak of European virtual YouTuberism and the utmost proponent of radical virtual YouTuberism. Now, because this is the first video, I decided to set sort of a theme for this channel, and I decided that it's going to be strategy games, mostly. And because of that, we're playing Hearts of Iron 4 today. And we're playing the Stresa Front National Focus Tree Path, which obviously has been recently added with the La Résistance DLC. And we're going to try out not only the theoretical applications of the Stresa Front, but also the practical basically meaning behind using the Stresa Front, how it benefits you, what's the downside to it, as opposed to maybe going with Britain or even going with the Little Entente, and everything like that. Now, as for the mods that I'm using the Enemy no Sekai mod because hey, this is a virtual YouTuber channel, so might as well go with the theme, right? And make it an anime mod, right? And then I'm using the expanded decisions mod, which basically just gives you more customization, gives you more decisions to use, and ultimately that's just more freedom and more fun. As well as using the expanded advisors, or just, more advisors mod essentially, which gives you just more advisors, is basically what the mod says, and again, more freedom, more fun. And I'm using the hybrid map mod, which just gives you a nicer looking map, and that's basically it. And as for the decisions and everything like that, it doesn't really matter too much when you're using France, because France has a limited political power gain. Quite a bit actually, limited political power gain at the beginning of the game, where it's most crucial that you pick certain advisors. So it actually might be sort of a downside when using these mods with France. And I'm also using the unlimited divisions per general mod essentially, or not unlimited, but it gives you like 720 by default. So it's not something that's incredibly useful to France because you have enough generals. It's just something that I always use because I'm getting sort of annoyed at the constant limitations that Paradox introduces in these games. And sometimes it's nice just to have a bit of freedom that doesn't necessarily negatively impact the AI too much. And that's basically my philosophy behind using all of these mods. Now, as for the main idea behind this video, as I said, we're going to be doing the Stresa Front, which, if you know your history, means that France basically tries to ally with Italy and basically tries to shift the political dynamic in Europe so that Italy doesn't end up in the Axis, however ends up in an alliance with either France or both France and Britain. And to try and balance that, I basically made Czechoslovakia, Norway, and Denmark go fascist and made them join the Axis. Because, hey, it wouldn't be a fair ground test that way, right? Because we were basically just stealing an ally. So, to properly test out all the benefits and all the theories behind the Stresa Front, we have to balance the playing field a little bit so that Germany isn't in an incredibly disadvantageous situation now. So what are the main theories when using the Stresa Front? Why should it be beneficial at all? Why would it be beneficial at all? And I think the main thing that really puts off people when you talk about the Stresa Front at all, using it basically as opposed to maybe going with Britain or doing any sort of alternate path or even the Little Entente. The Stresa Front, well, because it's Italy, right? Like, what's Italy really gonna do, right? The Germans are probably just gonna punch through the Alps and punch through Germany, punch through Italy more rather, and you're gonna be in the same situation as you always are. Protecting like 700 fronts with your meager manpower supply and your meager divisions, and yeah, that's basically the one theory as to how the Stresa Front National Focus Tree Path goes, right? Italy is gonna do nothing except die, and that's that. And that's definitely a possibility, right? That's definitely a possibility, because And the alliance between France and Italy has the potential to be the most disappointing alliance in world history, because obviously they're both like secondary great powers at this time. They're not that great, you know, putting it mildly. They're not that great. And so the alliance between them isn't something that sounds all that powerful, right? However, while it might not be that powerful from the Italian perspective alone, if you only take a look at Italy as an ally and their track record and how they perform in the Axis and everything like that, and from the French point of view, I think, in theory, it actually is probably the most powerful one. And it's a bit of a controversial statement right there, but I think it's the most powerful one because when you play as France in the regular historical path, you go down, you try and join Britain, you join the Allies, everything like that, the usual path. What ends up happening is that you have to take care of the Alpine front, obviously with Italy. You have to take care of the Benelux front. You have to take care of the Maginot front. You have to take care of the little islands in the Mediterranean. You have to deploy your navy in the Mediterranean. You have to take care of Africa, both African fronts. If Britain loses Egypt, you have to take care of Syria, and it's just a big ol' headache basically because the Italians aren't really so powerful as to really put up an advantage on your side when you go with the Stresa Front. That's my line of thinking. It's not that the Italians are an incredible ally to have. It's just that it's better for them to be on your side than not, because they have such a great position to annoy you. They have the Mediterranean Sea, they have a big navy. While it's not powerful, it can last a pretty long time, until like 1943, and constantly annoy you. They can potentially distract you from the European front by launching little invasions in Africa. You have to actively use resources to take care of those African fronts, because some of them have actually pretty good resources. You have a lot of rubber in your southern or in your central African holdings, and you have a lot of steel and stuff. And the northern African holdings usually have a lot of cores in Algeria, right? You usually have a lot of industry in Algeria, so there's a lot of it that really bothers you when Italy tries to do something in Africa. They can also just invade southern France, because why not? So, in theory, it's not so much that Italy is a great ally to have, but it's better for them to be on your side than for them not to be on your side, because it means that you don't have to worry. Don't have to worry about Africa, you don't have to worry about the islands, you don't have to worry about the navy. The navy is a big one. The navy for me is a big one because France has no oil, which means they have no fuel, which means they have to import a metric ton of it from either Britain, which doesn't have much oil anyway, or the United States. Which means that you have to build a lot of convoys, which are probably going to get sunk, and you have to, use a lot of civilian factories for that. So, all in all, having Italy as your enemy, it might not seem like it's a big deal, but it's actually a big deal because of the implications, what you have to do to circumvent that sort of state of affairs, and what you have to do to counterbalance it, and everything like that. So, having Italy on your side is actually quite beneficial, even though it might not seem like it. So, today what I wanted to start is actually this whole situation in practice, because you don't usually go down the Stresa Front. Nobody really goes down the Stresa Front. If you want to have a French alliance as a Democrat, you go to Little Entente. If you want to have a big alliance or just play historical, you just go with the Allies. The Stresa Front is sort of like the bastard child. Nobody really likes to talk about it, nobody really plays with it. Even before La Résistance was supposed to be released, I had no idea they were supposed to do the Stresa Front. I had no idea, even though I kept up with like the diaries and everything, and the National Focus Stream when it was revealed. The Stresa Front was sort of just there. And in reality, the Stresa Front, if anyone would have initiated it, it would have been the Italians, right? So it's sort of, even from a historical perspective, the Stresa Front is sort of like, that's a strange one, right? But it's fun. I think it's fun in theory. It should be fun in practice. Well, that's what we're going to find out today, hopefully. And, well, I don't really know. It's a strange situation, but hopefully it works out. The standard French strategy should be good enough. You know, just sort of defend, and then hopefully strike back. Hopefully the Italians do the same, because if their behavior in the Axis is an indication of anything at all, it's that the Italians build a lot of divisions, which aren't all that great on the attack, but they're quite good when defending. So hopefully this is gonna go well, because if it doesn't well, then that's quite a shame, isn't it? Okay, time to improve those relations with Britain and Italy. There we go. Now, I think Britain is supposed to give the British Somalia and British Somaliland to Italy. Yeah, pretty sure they're supposed to give all that, but that is a strange one. Like, from, like, you know, as an in-game thing, that's this is obviously, you know, fun and everything, but from like a historical perspective, after Germany, as you can see, they've already gone the Sudetenland, and they're only, you know, supposed to basically gain the entirety of the Horn of Africa as a compensation for going up against Germany. Now, this is a strange one, right, to me, from a historical perspective, because I've actually, you know, Augustus Maximus here, really into history, but I've done quite a bit of reading on this period of time, and I know that the Italians had basically roughly around 1937, 1938, close to when Germany was doing their whole spiel, and the Allies were going basically on the appeasement run. The Italians, not just like the government, but the populace itself, had quite a lot of fervor for claiming the lands formerly held by the House of Savoy. So basically, on the Italian border with France, basically formerly Italian lands that were annexed during the 19th century, I think. Yeah, pretty sure. And then they also wanted the Algiers. They basically wanted maybe Syria, and they also wanted Egypt, or at least large parts of Egypt, and they wanted free reign in the Balkans. And out of all of these individual claims that they have, they chose to give Djibouti. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. It's a strange one. It's sort of like they're trying to equate the Stresa Front with the Hor-Laval Pact from 1936. Yeah, there we go. From 1936, where the Allies tried to, or they were sort of a united effort by the basically by the guy we're playing as right now with France anyway, or Laval, the Laval and Hor, which was I don't remember who was, like a foreign secretary I think in Britain, and they tried to basically appease Mussolini by giving him a bunch of basically to get the go ahead to go with Ethiopia, and even potentially giving him lands held by the Allies in those regions. They're trying to equate these two things, like concessions to Italy to get them on side after, appeasing Germany. Like that's such a maybe that's why the this is such a strange focus. I don't know, but it's not quite. I don't think maybe they haven't done the research as much. Maybe they're just trying to simplify it. Maybe they think that the player wouldn't really go for something like this if they had to lose like half their African colonies, but I definitely think it would be actually kind of interesting. Maybe wait, here we go. Anschluss of Austria and Mussolini agrees. There we go. And I think they're supposed to. Oh no, we have to ratify it. Okay, so we ratified the Stresa Front. They're probably gonna lose. We're probably gonna lose Djibouti, and Chamberlain already agreed to, hand over British Somaliland or whatever their African Horn holdings, and so that's all it takes, really. That's it's kind of quite a strange one. I would think that you at least have to give up something in North Africa. to make it actually kind of hurt the player to do something like this, because as you can see, you know, you just improve relations, right? You just improve relations, and the British are like, yeah, sure, whatever, and the Italians like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's sort of, it's I guess, you know, it costs you political power to do that, so maybe that's the like sunk cost. And if at that point they were to also tear away valuable lands from France, that would be maybe a bit of a kick in the teeth. So maybe that's why they're not doing it. And overall, like the holdings that are on the African Horn for France, Djibouti, that's nothing, man. That's nothing, as opposed to like Corsica or the Tunisia or the Tunis lands, whatever. Djibouti really is just nothing, and British Somaliland is even less than nothing for Britain, because they have so much around the globe that's just much more beneficial. British Somaliland just has no resources and no factories, nothing like that. So it's instead of actually it might compensate it, like compensate Italy a little bit more, because like Savoy here, right? That's an actual claim of the Italian monarchy. So maybe Savoy, I don't know, but like from a purely historical perspective, right? It's just giving Djibouti. I mean, it's cheap, right? It's a cheap way to acquire, and ratification of Stresa Front. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. And there we go. Britain's in the alliance. We lost Djibouti. We lost our holdings, and let's give them something in Africa as well. Because hey, why not? Oh, that's like the, was it not the state transfer? That's like the 2-pack mode, which is probably the most useful thing ever for a player. But yeah, there we go. So we compensated Italy, and then we compensate them a little bit more, just so it makes sense, at least a little bit from a historical perspective. Because if they weren't, if the British didn't agree, I think it would have also given them Tunisia. Because it just makes sense. Like Mussolini, like all of the rhetoric, it's all about like empire building, and even, you know, during the period of time, the Italian people really wanted some stuff. So, whatever, makes sense. So there we go. United with Italy. I think I'm gonna skip till well, something interesting happens. But I think yeah, there. Look at India. Like look at India, right? Like what the hell? So it actually is a. It's true. There actually is a glitch that makes Britain lose like their dominions and everything like that. That's so strange, isn't it? Like, why would the status of India have any bearing whatsoever? They even did the colonial focus tree. They didn't do, you know, decolonization at all. Why would the status of Italy, right, shift the dominion status or whatever status of the British Empire? Like that has to be some sort of glitch where it thinks that Britain maybe lost a war. That's why they forcefully had to disband the Allies, and that's why the colonies are free. I don't know. This is strange. And here we go. The war should be starting up any moment. And there we go. The German Reich declared war on Poland. Now we'll truly see how things go. But before that, let's take a little while to appreciate the fact that the British Empire is completely gone. Well, they do still have their colonial lands, their directly occupied lands in Africa and everywhere else. However, the British Empire completely collapsed when it comes to the Dominion status, because the British decided to join an alliance with Italy in 1937, which resulted in the complete collapse of the Allies and the Dominion status and the puppet status of roughly half the world. You know, if you thought that Edward, you know, the reaction of the Dominions to Edward's marriage was a bit drastic, wait until you see this in the history books. But here we go, might as well start something against the Germans, because they have virtually nothing against us, and I think that's mostly because they're worried maybe about the Southern Front, maybe because the Polish actually decided to build themselves up a bit, and that means that the Germans have to assign more units to the Polish front. I'm not entirely sure, but I might as well forget about the Belgian front for a little while, because nothing's gonna be happening there. And yeah, it does look like the Czechoslovakians are truly helping out the Germans, which is always good to see when it comes to actually trying to balance out the game. For some reason, the Italians have divisions on our border, which is It's a little bit strange. You don't necessarily need them here, but all might as well. I guess they're doing fine on the southern front. They have pushed a couple of tiles, but the main issue here is going to be oil and fuel. Now we can leave it up a little bit to the Italian Navy to transfer over to us and try and do something about the German submarines, but I don't really have high hopes for something like that. It's probably just gonna result in absolute failure. Because it's not because like the Italians have a terrible navy. They have actually a really decent navy. It's like the third biggest navy at the start of the game. They have roughly the same amount of ships as France. They have a pretty bad navy when it comes to the quality of it, as in the ships are relatively old and need some upgrading. If you're planning to play like a navally focused Italy, you definitely need to upgrade your ships quite a bit. But in terms of just sheer mass, you know, their navy is actually relatively decent, and they can definitely handle the submarines from Germany in 1939, 1940. Later on, you know, you can see the Italian Navy getting wrecked by like level 3 submarines all day, every day. But until that happens, it's relatively fine. Still bamboozled over this, you know, complete collapse of the British Empire because Italy decided, you know, to eat a different tasting pizza one day, and that's why the British Empire just like, it's so strange, right? It's so damn strange. But anyway, hopefully they fix this. I don't know. It's oh, it's sort of strange. But one thing that's actually going to be kind of interesting now is the amount of support we might actually get from these Dominion nations. It's because when they're a puppet, right? They have reduced access to some of the more manpower and military-focused paths within their national focus trees. So maybe since they're free, it's going to be a bit different. Maybe India can actually wield more manpower. I don't know. It's going to be strange. But well, definitely Pakistan is gonna be on our side, because usually it's not. It's usually, you know, sort of non-aligned, doesn't usually join the allies, but funnily enough, that one actually still remained as a puppet to the British. It's so strange, right? It's I don't know. This world's a mess. And we caused all of it. You know, we completely shattered the world just because we wanted Mussolini on their side. Now that's a very hard to find for thing to actually happen. But as you can see, pushing the Germans is slowly but surely becoming a bit of an annoyance. I suppose they decided that Poland wasn't actually worth sending 100 divisions over, and instead they're trying to instead they decided to actually focus on the Western Front, which is interesting. They're also trying to push the Germans a little bit, which is interesting. Wait, okay, so we have Hungary on our side. Oh, I get it. The Czechoslovakians must have gone and you know, decided to do the, you know, invade Hungary focus, or whatever that focus is called. So now we even have Hungary on our side. Well, this is a strange shift of events. It's like we have the protocols of Rome merging with the Allies, I suppose, instead of just having Mussolini on our side. Well, Hungary isn't actually. Well, it's gonna be a distraction, you know. It's gonna be a distraction, but I suppose it makes up for the fact that, you know, Britain, poor old Britain here. They just wanted to help out a bit, and they completely, you know, lost everything. But well, that's just how it goes, you know. That's just how it goes, you know. They still have their African holdings, and Africa is actually relatively safe. It's very doubtful that Germany would gain access to Africa. Maybe if they somehow use the spy mechanic and cause an uprising, but the AI very rarely does something like that. I don't think they ever actually do anything like that, so I don't know. It's well, we'll see how things go, but so far so good. The Italians are defending. We're, you know, make the Polish more legitimate a little bit here, because this is actually a mechanic that's sort of underused. It's very weak in the sort of government at exile mechanic. Even if you get a lot of support, you don't necessarily get a lot of divisions out of it, and it's just sort of weak. Well, anyway, as you can see, this war is very quickly devolving into just stagnant warfare, just sort of the regular old Hearts of Iron 4 playing as France in vanilla, in just going down democratic. It's very quickly devolving into a complete state of nothingness, not even chaos. It's just stagnant. Nothing's happening. The Italians are having all the fun. The Germans aren't even bothering to attack, as we can't necessarily push them at all. So, I'll be back when something more interesting happens, I guess. Okay, so if you remember the short little talk from the beginning of the video about the theoretical downsides of having to take care of Italy, well, here we go. The complete collapse of the Italian front has begun, and we'll have to redirect our units to help them a bit. Which isn't actually that big of a bother, because the Germans even declared war on Belgium, but they're not actually doing anything about it. They're just sort of, standing around. They invaded Luxembourg, and that's where the advance stopped, but they are focusing their attention down south on Italy, so, I don't know. Hungary collapsed long ago. Wait, what? Slovakia? Man, the Bohemian Empire is just tearing itself apart. First they, add Hungary to, to our ranks, and now Slovakia has rebelled because they went down the wrong focus tree path. And the AI really doesn't know what it's doing with their own focus trees. They go down the worst paths, the most, especially when you're at war. They basically, added 2 allies to our ranks and are completely tearing themselves apart. But that's, there we go, that's just how things go. It's actually pretty interesting, because Slovakia is usually on the side of the Axis, right? But because they decided to rebel, it wasn't even treated as an internal dispute, because we have such a high world tension. They just straight up joined the Stresa Front. And I suppose there is a precedence, because Slovakia is a fascist country in this game, by default. There is a precedence, because Italy is already in the Stresa Front, Hungary is already in the Stresa Front, might as well, right? It's sort of a democratic and fascist alliance, also some non-aligned. It's sort of an alliance of all things. And I suppose if you really want to role-play the Stresa Front, we might as well go after the Soviet Union after this, because, well, why not? It's sort of just, it's an alliance of concerned citizens with various ideologies trying to, contain their enemies and not necessarily do anything infurious, you see. It's just about containment. And that's all there is to it, it's called the Stresa Front. Well, there isn't any, there's no implications behind anything like that, right? And so, for example, Hungary got attacked, and we immediately, invited them to join us. And Czechoslovakia and Slovakia wanted its liberty, and so we invited them as well. It's completely wholesome, I assure you. But there we go. So this Italian front, it seems like it's fragile, but the Italians actually have a lot of troops here, and the Germans don't have anything here. It's sort of a curious situation how the Germans managed to get this far in the first place. So I'm not entirely sure. The German AI, sometimes it's like really good. Sometimes it just punches through the allies like nothing. But sometimes it does things like this, where, it sort of attacks with like a haymaker. They completely annihilate half your divisions. They push deep into your country, and then they just leave no garrison, or at least half damaged infantry that can't really put up a fight at all. And yeah, even the Italo-French alliance is going to be able to mop up something like that, because that's just kind of weak. But one thing that's actually kind of interesting about this situation is, because the Germans are dealing with so much, the Norwegian front is just completely gone. Because the Germans are dealing with so much pressure here, and even their backline, Bohemian Empire is constantly dealing with a lot of chaos. I doubt we'll actually have to worry about them doing the Barbarossa thing at all. I think this is going to be purely decided by the Stresa Front Axis, the Axis Stresa Front side of the war, however you say it. Because Stresa Front has the word front in it, it's gonna be a strange one, so let's say the Western Front. This is probably gonna be decided on the Western and Southern fronts, because Well, I highly doubt that the German AI is that suicidal as to attack even the Soviet Union during something like this. But we'll have to see. I don't know, because I went down the defensive focus because I thought this was gonna be very different than how it actually is playing out. I thought we'd actually have to hold out, guard our flanks and everything like that. I didn't go down the fortification bonus, I think, but I went down the defensive focus nonetheless, and I think I should have gone down the offensive focus instead and really rushed the Germans maybe and made some heavy tanks and stuff like that, because I went down the sort of the standard 20 width, mostly infantry, mostly defensively oriented division build for France, which seems like it's a mistake in this situation because you have an ally that Italy itself does have an AI modifier that's focused on the offensive. And oh, there we go. Talking about offensives, might as well join up, right? The Belgians are actually doing something here, or basically everyone's doing something up here because, oh, I don't know why. It seems like the most defended nation there. It seems like the most defended front right there, but I suppose they're trying to liberate Luxembourg. I suppose that's something nice to do, something thoughtful, just to get Luxembourg on side again and liberate them. Maybe, their one division with 3 units is gonna be worthwhile. It's gonna be, helpful in the long run. But as I said, just a bunch of concerned citizens. Nothing nefarious to see here, comrade. But yeah, it's an interesting one, this Stresa Front, when it comes to how you actually want to approach the conflict itself. It seems like you'd want to go down the offensive doctrine focus instead, and you'd want to just rush the Germans because they can't really comprehend the fact that there is an additional front, and they have to, at the start of the war, take care of Poland, France, the Low Countries. Possibly Denmark if they're going, if you're not modifying the game at all, and Italy as well, and France as well. So maybe they just can't handle the amount of divisions that are presented. And in that vein, I think it would be wise, by paradox, to maybe modify sort of the AI behavior of Germany if France really does go down the Stresa Front path. Maybe what would be more interesting is that if France goes down the Stresa Front, maybe Germany decides to do the Berlin-Moscow axis, which usually results in Italy leaving the axis and having sort of bad relations with Germany for a while, and you really try to persuade them to, come back, Italy. But now, because this is basically the Italians decided to join the Allies a bit, the Germans don't have to worry about something like that. They can focus on actually maintaining their good relationship with either, the Soviet Union, or they can decide to befriend Sweden, befriend Turkey, befriend the Netherlands, stuff like that. Maybe actually Italy joining the Stresa Front would result in the war moving till like 1940, 1941, something like that, and it would actually, I think it would make sense, but the problem with that is that the Stresa Front focus, because, the French have so much stuff they have to worry about at the beginning of the game, usually complete the Stresa Front focus by like 1937 or 1938. And the AI usually has already done all the alliance focuses for Germany by that time. So it's, well, it's a difficult act to balance, right? But it's not like you can even set the priority of Germany when it comes to alliances in the customization menu. You can't, for example, set for them to go down the Berlin-Moscow axis. Again, you have to mod it in, which is, that's an oversight that is a bit of an annoyance when you're trying to have sort of custom battles. Because, for example, the Stresa Front versus the Berlin-Moscow axis, like, that's badass, right? That's badass. It's sort of like, again, the Concerned Citizens Alliance versus the extremely aggressive alliance. And it's, I think something like that would work. But, again, we're not moving past these Germans at all. This is a bother. really didn't think it would devolve this much into just stagnant warfare. The Italians down south are actually having a blast. They're fighting off the Germans. They're fighting in the mountains. We do have some divisions there, but just to help them out a little bit. But over on the main front, you could say nothing's happening at all. This is basically World War I again, if you really consider it. The Germans and the Italians, they're constantly launching futile attacks at each other in the mountains, just constantly having the same battle over and over again, not resulting in anything significant. And we're just standing here on the Western Front, looking at each other, not doing anything. We can't even take Luxembourg back properly when it comes to actually pushing past Luxembourg. We did manage to liberate them, though, so that's... there we go. Well, anyway, might as well try these attacks. It's probably not going to result in anything, but, well, here we go. Wait a second, we might actually have some success here. I do see green bubbles, so it's time for some air support, even though everything already got shut down by the Germans. Wonderful, and the RAF is nowhere to be seen, of course, and the Italian aviators are, of course, also completely preoccupied by the Alpine front. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough one, but hopefully we'll manage to push past the Germans and, be in Berlin by, like, 1950 at the rate that this is going. But, well, who knows? Time to switch to more aggressive focus, by the way, because, I don't know, when it comes to, like, the army doctrines, I think superior firepower is just baseline the best. Like, you can't necessarily beat it that much. And the game's lagged, and wait, what? So the game just decided to lag and do nothing apart from that. Okay, well, there we go. Well, time to push the Germans. We managed to push into Germany itself. Continuing the advance would be very much advised, right? Because once you actually manage to get a hold in Germany, it's quite easy from the French perspective to advance. The main issue is that there are so many rivers, there are so many hills and everything like that when it comes to your side of the front. When actually trying to advance, compared to, for example, when Poland or the Soviets try to advance into Germany, that it's an annoyance to actually get past that and actually advance into Germany. But once you do, it's very easy, because, well, Germany tends to have a lot of infrastructure, right? They have a very solid supply limit there, and so you can actually just stack a metric ton of units and just try and push. And I suppose that's going to be the main tactic here. I sort of wonder how actually successful this is going to be, because, well, it's just pure infantry. I don't know really what the Italian build looks like, but I suppose it's also very infantry focused, and the British also tend to focus on infantry. So this isn't really going to be like heavy tanks or mobile tanks, or mobile tanks, I mean medium tanks. Medium tanks advancing and doing encirclements or anything like that. This is basically just a mass infantry charge into Germany, and that's well, now World War I all over again. And that's we managed to defend Belgium this time, and Luxembourg as well. We managed to liberate them after a brief occupation. So it's well, World War I, Vol 2, electric, Boogaloo, whatever, is going much better. It's going much better than the first time around, and yeah, well, that's all that matters, right? Don't you just love it when you've already pushed way past Berlin? You're practically, well, actually liberating Poland. We're actually liberating Poland. We were pushing into Czechoslovakia. We've already destroyed all the other allies that the Axis have. Yet the Germans just aren't giving up. The Italians are already attacking the Greeks because they're just bored with the Germany. They're just bored. There's nothing going on. The Alpine front has been stagnant as hell for the past 2 years. The only thing we've been doing is attacking like madmen in Germany with just pure infantry, not giving the Germans any time to rest, any time to actually recruit any good divisions. Just attacking, trying to get past Berlin, trying to get past their capable divisions. And even once we do all that, by the gods, they're still holding strong. By Jupiter's beard. This is, this is the state of affairs currently. We haven't really missed much in terms of rapid, quick developments. All we're doing is just sort of standing here and trying to advance, and it's not very good, but we're trying to somehow make progress, and that's, that's the spirit of things. Well, hopefully things will be over very quickly. But what a war, man! What a war! This is actually pretty good. It's not. Overall, because the world's basically over, might as well try and rate the Stresa Front at least to some degree. Like, how fun was it? It's actually pretty decent. Once you get past the fact that you basically give Djibouti to Italy, which is nothing, and you should definitely give them more, but whatever. Once you get past that fact, as a negative, I think there's basically no other downside to it. I think it's, compared to how usually the Allied, and there we go, managed to liberate Slovakia. Compared to how usually these things go when playing as France, I think it's actually the most powerful one out of all the democratic paths. I'll still post a video, I think, where I'm playing the Little Entente to truly, test it out, because the Little Entente it has the potential to be the most powerful one. It does give you a lot of bonuses, but compared to this one, I'm not really sure if actually it can even potentially hold up, because you don't have to worry about your southern flank, you don't have to worry about the navy, you don't have to worry about Africa at all, and you don't have to worry about potentially not having enough divisions assigned to against Germany itself. And really, you don't have to worry about the Italians that much. I see, they sometimes tend to collapse around the Alpine front, but the northern Italian front is, they have so many, again, hills there, they have so many rivers there. You can defend quite a bit, even if you send on like 20, very crappy 10th divisions to Italy, usually can help them out enough so they're able to sort of regain their footing and really push the Germans back. They tend to attack quite a bit, even in very disadvantageous situations, and they tend to attack very rapidly, very often, so they actually put a lot of pressure on the Germans, as opposed to at least that's how it used to be, and that's how it still definitely is with the British AI. The British AI just doesn't do anything, and the AI, for example, Romania and Yugoslavia, even if you add them to your, regular allies, they just don't tend to do anything. They just tend to, sit around and defend against an imaginary opponent somewhere. So it's the Italians, because I think maybe because they're a major power, but also because they have that AI modifier focused on offense, they're actually very, very, very useful. And so yeah, I think the Stresa Front is actually the most powerful one out of all the democratic paths. It certainly is very powerful if you're trying to, have a bit of fun, and it certainly led to some very interesting scenarios, but that's mostly because I try to balance it our way with giving the Germans Czechoslovakia and Denmark and Norway. And that certainly led to an interesting scenario. The British at least did something, they at least occupied Norway, and they at least invaded Denmark. Apart from that, the British usually, don't do anything, so it's nice to see that the British actually did something to help, even though they lost the entirety of their empire, which that's another thing. There we go, finally. What a war! It's still as grueling experience as ever to try and defeat Germany as France. It always takes the life out of you. I'm also running the Polyglot Peace Conferences to create the most magnificent world ever. But I think that's basically where I'll end up this video, because, we managed to test out the Stresa Front's capabilities, and we found out, that it's actually incredibly fun. It's incredibly powerful, and while the British do tend to lose the entirety of the world as a as a result for some reason, and it's still a grueling experience because you're playing France against Germany, and that's just usually how things go. It's it's actually quite a lot of fun, and so far it seems that you compare to, for example, the regular allies, that the Stresa Front, it's definitely the more powerful one out of the two. I'll do a video maybe tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, where I'll go over the Little Entente, and we'll have a lot of we'll see how We'll see how powerful that one is, but I have my doubts compared to the Stresa Front, because well, it just seems like it's, I don't know, it just seems like it's better, right? You gain an additional great power. The theory actually held up. You really don't have to worry about the Italian front that much because of the, well, the Italians just have a lot of divisions, and so you don't have to worry about it at all. And, well, it's still a long war, but, well, you don't necessarily expect a very short war against the Germans playing as France. You can do a lot of things against the Germans as a great power, but not as France. And not as Italy, so it's so from that perspective it's sort of obvious it's gonna be a long war, right? Well, anyway, thanks Kings for watching this first video by Augustus Maximus. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully look out for more videos and subscribe and like and comment and everything like that. See you next time.